Thanks, Laskin Corley. I want to ask the Minister for Defence if any review of the 1994 contracts for members of the Defence Forces is to take place, and if you'll make a statement on the matter. We have a very worrying scenario that could potentially occur in the next 12 months unless we have an updated policy position on this, and I'd welcome a statement from the Minister.
Minister, 2 minutes to respond.
Military life places unique demands on individuals, and necessary that the Defence Forces personnel are prepared to meet the challenges of all military operations. To this end, it is vital the age and health profile of personnel is such as to ensure that operation capability and effectiveness are not compromised in any way. The age and fitness profile of the Permanent Defence Forces was an issue of serious concern during the 1990s and was the subject of severe criticism in a series of external reports. One of the key areas identified for urgent action was the development of a manpower policy with an emphasis on lowering the age profile of the Permanent Defence Forces personnel. As a result, new terms and conditions were introduced for personnel enlisting from after the 1st of January 1994, and new contracts for enlisted personnel were for a period of 5 years service. This was agreed with PD4 at the time. Since that time, the maximum period for service has been extended following further claims received from PD4. Personnel enlisted post-January 1994 now have a maximum service of 21 years, unless they have progressed to the rank of sergeant or above in the interim. Service of 21 years service 21 years is subject to individual meeting specified criteria as set out in Defence Force administrative instructions. PD4 has submitted a claim through the Conciliation and Arbitration Scheme for a further extension of the service contract limits to allow enlisted personnel to serve to 50 years of age, subject to meeting fitness, medical and other criteria. The Department did not consider a further extension appropriate, given the manpower policy of maintaining a satisfactory personal profile. It did, however, propose that in recognition of the investment and training in specialised personnel, privates and corporals in receipt of tech pay Group 3 and above would be eligible to serve up to 50 years of age. This is subject to these individuals meeting annual medical and fitness tests and other specified required criteria. PD4 did not agree with these proposals. An agreement could not be reached in this matter proceed to adjudication in 2015, where an independent adjudicator made specific findings which were accepted by both official and representative sides. The adjudicator did not recommend extending the service limit to extent in the claim from a representative side.
The remainder will be in the official report. Deputy Chambers, 1 minute.
Minister, I know at the 2017 PD4 conference you made an undertaking to review the terms of the 1994 contracts, and you need to clarify what you've done since then. And there's a strong belief that more subjective criteria are needed for the retention of personnel, and members should be retained on capacity, not age. And I agree that obviously in terms of operational capabilities you need to look at the various strata, but it shouldn't be done on a rigid age profile dependence on promotions. And the fact is that you know and I know that we have a retention crisis. You're not meeting your white paper target, and PD4 have estimated that over the next number of months, in the next year, we could have 600 to 800 may leave the Defence Forces, and a lot of that centralises around the 1994 contracts. If you take that with the number of people purchasing their discharge, we have a serious manpower issue facing us in the next 12 months, where you're going to be further away than ever from your white paper target of 9,500. And I'd ask you to look at what other countries are doing in this space. They're not using the same rigid criteria around the age profile, and they're looking at the actual ability of the person themselves and developing more subjective criteria in that space. And I'd ask that you follow through on your own commitment in that regard.
Yes, Deputy, at the PD4 annual delegate conference in 2017, I did say I had instructed civil and military management to develop a broad review of contracts for enlisted personnel within the Defence Forces. I advised that this would require careful consideration of the operational requirements of the Defence Forces and the personnel requirements to meet all of the requirements and needs of the organisation. A group comprising of departmental and military management was established after that. As a result of this review, the criteria relating to re-engagement in service was amended, and this has allowed for additional personnel who had enlisted since 2006 to continue in service after 12 years. A broader review examining appropriate age profiles for enlisted personnel is scheduled to be conducted as part of the White Paper on defence process, and PD4 will of course be consulted on all of the developments. And I have already indicated that we should seriously look at the extension of service beyond 21 years. But there is a number of areas that we have to look at in consultation with everybody, and that's the balance of the individual, the needs of the organisation, and making sure that we have people that are healthy, that are fit, and pass all the required stages
Chambers,
of
final
any test.
question.
You will also subscribe to the view that our people must be physically and psychologically fit to undertake the particular challenges of the job. But Minister, you've outlined another review based on a previous review. If you look at the other international comparisons, Malta it's 55 years, Finland 55, Belgium 56, Cyprus 52, Australia 60 years of age. And we have many people who are in their 30s with high mortgage and childcare costs, as well as having to maintain their own family life, being let go. But we also have a contradictory policy by the Department of Defence, where you're trying to target people who have retired. So we had headlines in the autumn of last year saying that Defence Forces are targeting retired workers to tackle your staff problems. So you've an issue from the 1994 contracts where you're allowing people to leave, and you have a policy of trying to rehire people you've allowed to go. It's completely contradictory from a departmental perspective, if you just think it through, where you're targeting people who left and now you're allowing people to go because of a rigid contractual regime. I think we need an urgent review. This could contribute to a serious hemorrhaging of numbers if there isn't an urgent policy change in this space. And I'd ask you to do it urgently in the spring of this year, because your white paper target will be way off by this time next year if you don't address the issue.
Like comparing apples and oranges, but let me state that the re-entry scheme that I have introduced is you could have a pilot, and what we did say was that within areas of expertise that we would encourage people to come back into the organisation. And if you take a pilot maybe that retired at 35 years of age, maybe has went out to the UAE or somewhere, the Middle East or somewhere like that, or into the private sector for 5 years, that he's still only less than 40. That he or she wants to come back into the organisation. Absolutely, if there's something to offer to the organisation. But when you talk about, this does affect mostly private and listed members of the organisation. And let me say that, okay, there's a number of issues that have to be considered. And okay, there's areas that you can compare the Irish Defence Forces to Australia and other militaries. But then there's areas where you cannot. They are huge militaries with maybe 5 or 6, 10 times the size of our military, and you cannot, on occasions, you cannot compare other militaries to what we have. But let me state, this is an area that I have stated. I've said it back in 2017 at the PD4 conference. I think PD4 have understand my own views on this and where I would like to get to. But let me state that there is work going on, and I understand where you're coming from.
Thank you,
and the Deputy Association